Thanks everyone for attending. Like I said, if you have any questions, please use the chat. We'll try and answer them. Our talk today, first of all, let's do this first. Let's get through the announcements first. I did a poll here a couple months ago and asked people what their preferences were as far as how often to have these meetings. Do you want them monthly? Do you want them quarterly? And the consensus was that they prefer them to be quarterly. So with Conf in October, we'll probably try and do our next one in early November so we avoid the holidays. If you're interested in giving a talk, you can email me at nkfordeplura.com and we can talk about your talk and get it scheduled. You can also keep track of what's going on with the Des Moines User Group in the Splunk group channel, Slack channel, Iowa. So we post the user group announcements in there. Today's talk is by Curtis Smallwood. He's a coworker of mine. And he's going to be presenting on implementing the MITRE ATT&CK with Splunk Security Essentials. So with that, I will let Curtis go ahead and start presenting.
Thanks, Nancy. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Not able to share my screen anymore.
Just a second here.
All right.
Let me stop sharing and then
that's probably it.
There you go. My window got hidden, so you're good.
All right. Can everyone see? Yep. All right, cool. Hello. Today we're going to talk about MITRE ATT&CK. Specifically going to use the Splunk Security Essentials app to implement the MITRE ATT&CK framework into Splunk. Today we're going to briefly go over what the MITRE ATT&CK framework is so we don't lose you all on the first slide. We're going to go and talk about the pillars of the Splunk Security Essentials app. We're going to talk about how to map the data and the searches and everything. And then we're going to show incident review in the Enterprise Security app. And then we're going to show kind of how you can use it in a SOC and what benefits you gain from that. And then we'll talk about what you can do from there. Who am I? My name is Curtis Smallwood. I'm a security consultant at Plura. We're based out of Towson, Maryland. I've worked for Plura for almost 2.5 years now. Let's see. All right, so what is the MITRE ATT&CK framework? The MITRE ATT&CK framework it's based on real world findings and events. They're not things that could happen or people predict would happen. They have happened before in other environments and they've been reported to MITRE and researched heavily, and they get put in this pretty framework, which I'll show you soon. It is open source and it's community driven. It's all free, and MITRE has I don't think it's very large, but a decent sized team that produces all the research for it and puts it into the framework. And what it does, it provides a common language for defenders across the world to kind of talk about security. You can use the technique and tactic IDs as kind of like, this happened in my environment, instead of describing it in your own way. It gives you a common language. It is comprised of 3 things. Well, 4 things now, but I'll talk about that in a second. So 3 things mainly is tactics, techniques, and procedures. So tactics are the goals of the adversary. That's what the adversary wants to do. That's what they want to achieve in your environment. And the technique is how they're going to carry that out. And then procedures, you can think of them as like advanced persistent threat groups and stuff like that. So they did just implement sub-techniques into the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We're not going to go too much into that today because that's not a part of Splunk Security Essentials yet. So let's just show this really quick. This is the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It's available at attack.mitre.org. Across the top, you'll see all the tactics, and they are associated with a TA number. And then underneath are all the techniques. Now, these are going to be your sub-techniques there. We're not talking about those though. So the tactics are above the top. Like I said, they're goals of the adversary. And the way someone explained it to me once is you can have many techniques for one goal. Many techniques for different goals. So if your goal was to, this is the example they gave me, if your goal was to get healthy and you wanted to walk to work, get healthy and get to work. Those are 2 tactics. You can walking would be your technique, and you can have the same technique for many tactics. I hope that makes sense. So don't get confused if you see the same technique under tactics, different tactics. Sorry, it's hard to get the techniques and tactics down. It's interchangeable. But you can kind of go through here and look, and there's very detailed information about them. For example, drive-by compromise. You can go and look at the ID, sub-techniques. You can look at the threat groups that are normally carrying these out and what have you. So that's a brief overview of the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. And then we can briefly talk about what Splunk Security Essentials is. So Splunk Security Essentials is a free app built by members that work at Splunk. There are 4 main pillars. So it enables you to find content in your environment, learn about different things that are happening in your environment. You can improve your production deployments. It's also a great way to measure success and showcase the need for certain data sources and things like that. It's really useful because it acts as a big library for use cases that come from other apps that you have. So the Enterprise Security Content Update app provides a lot of use cases. The Splunk Security Essentials actually has a set of its own use cases, and it compiles them all together and allows you to assign them to certain searches in your environment. So, and the key thing it does is incorporates the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. So let's talk about the pillars really quickly. So this is the home page of the Splunk Security Essentials app. So again, you can find content, learn, deploy, and measure success. And if you click on these, you can walk yourself through ways of finding more content. Same with learning. You can learn about how to onboard data, learn about Splunk in general, security. We'll talk about the security journey later. Same with help deploy, how you can operationalize the MITRE ATT&CK Framework, all these different ways of deploying this in your production environment, and then measure success. Like I said earlier, we can justify new data sources to management or whoever has to write the check for onboarding new data. That would be this use case here, or not use case, this menu here, which I'll show you later. So let's start by mapping the data. So the 3 main menus of Splunk Security Essentials, as far as MITRE ATT&CK goes, is data inventory, content introspection, and then we'll talk about custom content creation. So let me show you these. So to start, you're gonna start here under data inventory. Now the way this works is you have to tell Splunk Security Essentials where to look for your data. So because it'll tell you if you have the data or not. And because if you're like, oh, I want to use this use case, let's see if we have the data. It'll tell you if you don't have it if you don't map it. So I lost my mouse. All right. The only things you can do here is index and source type. You can't use tags. You can't use anything else. It just tells you you can only tell it index and source type. Now, keep in mind, this is in my Docker container, and I have everything in the main index, so you'll see that, but it's not like this in a production environment. You'll have different indexes. So you have vendors and you have products. Now you'll have Linux as the vendor, and the product would be security logs. And you can see here that I specified the main index with the Linux secure source type. So here, this is how you do it. There is an automated way of doing it, and it's pretty good, but you do have to go back and verify that it got it correctly. So let's see. So you'll start out by specifying the search string for the index and source type. You can pick the vendor from the pre-populated list here, or you can manually specify them. And then the product, there's a few products, just general, syslog, or security. Then you can define your coverage. This is kind of weird, but you can say how much you think of your environment you're covering. So if there's more Linux systems out there that you're not ingesting yet, this kind of gives you an opportunity to track that a little bit. And then it goes and does its verification. It says, yep, I see data in the main index under the Linux secure source type. And then this just adds a little description of this was actually found in the automated search I told you about, and we're just confirming it. And then you complete. So there's that. That's how you do the data inventory. And there's all these different things underneath these categories here. So you have successful and failed authentication, for example. You can go to endpoint detection, so object changes, process launches, high listening ports you can look at there. So what have you. And this is exhaustive. You have to spend a lot of time doing data inventory. This isn't a requirement to do it, but your dashboards are going to be a little weird. It's going to tell you don't have the correct data to do the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So I recommend doing it. Some people don't, but it's up to you. Okay, whoops. Next, we'll talk about content introspection. Big words that they chose here, but what it boils down to is, so again, under data, we'll do that in a second. You can go through the use case library and bookmark content that you think you would really like to have going in your environment. Some of them are new listening port, potential brute force attack, flight risk, web browsing, what have you. And these are all use cases that are pulled in, like I said, from the library. They come from all the other apps as well as Splunk Security Essentials. Let me just show you that really quick so that makes sense. This is the main page where all your security content would be. So anything with a green icon comes with Splunk Security Essentials. The black icon is ES. And this is just stage 1. There's many stages. There's 6 stages actually. So there's hundreds of use cases you can pick from, and you have to identify which ones fit in your environment. All right. So I went through and I picked some that I thought were good, and I have a few searches running, and I did have event gen running all night. I did turn it off at like 4 a.m. because the fans started going on my laptop a little bit and it woke me up. So turned it off till like 7 this morning. So we have some data. So let's talk about content introspection. But first, I want to make a search. I want to show you how to do this. So we will go to, nope, this is where I wanted to go. So we'll go ahead and make a correlation search. We'll do this in enterprise security. So let me go, I've already got it prepared. So configure. One of the gotchas that I found while making this is if you don't have ES and you make a correlate or make an alert, it's gonna fail unless you have the capital word, the rule with capital R at the end, or else it's gonna fail. You won't be able to find it in your content introspection, which I'll show you. There's a specific stanza in props.conf under the Splunk Security Essentials app, and it looks for star space dash space rule. So if your alert doesn't have that, you're not going to be able to do it. So keep that in mind if you don't have ES. So we'll go through and we'll make this correlation search. One second. And so we're going to name it excessive failed login attempt. Let me get the search. I already made this search. It's a simple data model search. It's really noisy because I don't want to wait for it to have to find data. I have all this data in here, and for the sake of the demo, it's going to alert a lot. So now we'll set it to run at, what time is it? 23. We'll say like 30. So at 12:30, it's going to trigger. Okay. Go ahead and add the notable event. Description. So this is going to be access because they're trying to log in. We'll just make it medium. All right. So there we go. We save that. It's enabled. It's set to run at 12:30, and it's going to produce a whole lot of notable events. So now let's get back to content introspection. So the way I look at this is I consider it like the bridge to map your searches to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So essentially, you have your search and you have your use case, but you need to pair them, and this is that step. So this connects them. So as you can see here, for basic malware outbreak, this is the use case. It tells you all the threat groups that are associated with the use case. It tells you the tactics that are associated with it for MITRE, and then all the techniques, which are the ways of implementing these goals. And it kind of gives you a little information about like what to do, what's happening, what it means. And I did map this search to it already. So let's go ahead and we'll run the content introspection. This is also pretty automated. It's gonna make suggestions for us. Some of them are right, some of them are not right. And you just have to keep an eye on that. So we'll look for our new search we made. So we'll make sure we're only looking at correlation searches. Okay, so where is it? Hold on. All right, excessive failed login attempt. So we just made it, and you can see it already paired it to the excessive failed logins based on its deductive reasoning somewhere. So you can go open this up, and this is the search that I made. You can see it's set to go at 12:30, and here's the actual search string. Now, if this was something that you didn't want, you don't like this use case, you can search for new ones in here. So we'll just type login, and this searches that content library I was mentioning earlier. So you can see this is the use case it chose: excessive failed logins, multiple box login errors. There are many different things in here you can pick from based on your environment and what you're actually trying to find. They've got brute force, and you'll see under each one, you can see authentication failed is that data inventory category I showed you earlier. You've got credential access, that's the tactic, and then that's the technique. Brute force is credential access is the tactic, brute force is the technique. So we're gonna go ahead and choose that. We're okay with what it chose for us there. Here's an example here. It doesn't know what content to pair this one to, so it said, we think it's these, can you confirm? And you can confirm those. This is just another search from something else I was working on. All right, so that's us. We paired it to it. We'll refresh the page. And now our new excessive failed login use case should appear here. Okay, excessive failed logins says data availability. We have good data because we mapped it and it verified. This is the search that we just paired to it. It's brute force is the technique, credential access is the tactic, and these are the threat groups associated with it and where it's looking for this data, which is authentication. Okay, so we just have to wait 3 more minutes for that to fire and I can show you. But in the meantime, I want to talk about something really quick also that I found. If, say you have 2 excessive failed login searches, one searches a different environment and one searches your environment, you can't map both searches to the same use case. It will break both of them. You can't do it. That is not a feature right now. I have spoken with one of the developers though for Splunk Security Essentials, and they added it to a roadmap. So hopefully in future releases that'll be resolved. So one way around that, let me just show you one more time, this brings us back to this, it's create custom content. You can say you didn't like excessive failed logins, or you need to replicate it. So what I did for a client I was working on is I created a separate, I just mimicked this use case and I mirrored it, just put like pipe 2 at the end for each one that I made. So you can keep losing my mouse. Sorry. Create new, and you can create the name of your use case here. It automatically puts the search in there, but you can say, failed login, what stage of the security journey you want to be in. This is all custom. Use case, how did you find it? So we're monitoring for security use cases. How often you think it's going to fire? What severity? So this is kind of, an analyst would see these fields here and be like, oh, this is high severity. I need to work on this. Category, you can pick in here. I don't know, account compromise. And then this will be the data category we mapped it to earlier. So authentication, failed. I always do both because you never know. Then down here, you can set the security domain. So access. And then here's the actual MITRE ATT&CK part. So it was credentialed access and then brute force. And there you go. So if you save this right now, you just created a new use case and you can map your second search to this and it'll work just fine. It'll look just like the first one, but it won't interfere. They usually will interfere with each other.
Curtis,
So
we have a question.
yeah,
How much overlap is there between the use cases and the ES content update?
I wouldn't say there's overlap. So the content update comes in as an addition to Splunk Security Essentials. I can show you 1 second. They have a list of all of their use cases from Splunk Security Essentials here. So this is going to be a list of them, and then you can go through the security content update. There may be some that overlap, but these are good because they give you the searches and kind of what they're doing for you, how to find them. This is the searches based on live data and what it means for you. So I can get back to you on that question. I don't know if that fully answered it or not, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of overlap because they kind of build on each other. They're in addition to. So, all right. So yeah, you're welcome. Back to, where were we? So I'm going to cancel out of this. I don't need to make an additional custom content, but that's how you would get around the multiple searches for the same use case. So X that out, and it's 12:31. So hopefully our search fired. So we'll go into here. We'll just go in incident review for enterprise security. I was testing earlier, so there's going to be a lot of searches fired in here, but we'll just do the last 15 minutes. Oh, that's fine. It's taking a long time. Usually it's pretty snappy in here. Oh, geez. All right, let me find the search. Give me 1 second. Sorry. All right, here we go. This actually looks like it was from earlier, but it's okay. I'll show you anyway. So, why is it not working? Hold on 1 second. Sorry. 1 second. Could be why it was so slow earlier. That search was running over the last 24 hours and there's a lot of data. So let's check. Okay, so here's the one we made. It did fire with no alerts. All right, we'll enable this one. It's fine. Sorry for that delay, folks. Yeah, I think my Docker container's running a little behind here. So let me just show you what we can do though. So let me go back and let me fix something really quick. 1 second. So sorry. I can, we'll rerun this and I'll check for the previously running one that was working. We'll go from there. Sophie makes a great point. It's helpful to see the troubleshooting steps for enabling correlation searches. Security Essentials, they have a whole troubleshooting guide here on the left. I believe it's under technical details. So you can also look there. Just give me one moment. I want to turn my data event gen off. It's really slowing it all down here. Sorry. All right, that should help, hopefully. Might take a little bit to catch up. So in the meantime, while we've got all this, let me let the Docker container calm down a little bit. I can show you what we've got here. So here's a dashboard that I made that searches the notable index for searches that are that I paired to the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. So it goes through the last 4 hours and it shows you what notables that have what tactics are associated with the notables that are fired. So you can see here we have privilege escalation, credential access, initial access, and then it tells you what techniques that are existing in your environment right now. And over time, you can see what tactics are spiking, what techniques are spiking, and then the search names that are associated with them as well. So these are going to be all mapped to MITRE ATT&CK Framework, and this kind of gives you an overview into your environment on what's happening with the correlation search results. So I can show you, we can just run a search on the notable index here. All right, so index equals notable. And we'll just search that. I'll show you. Yeah, my searches are deleted, that's why. All right, so down here, one second. All right, so you can see here, MITRE ATT&CK combined, you can see which ones, this is where it's pulling it from to make those dashboards I showed you with the pie charts. I think something really important here, I can show you this in a bit, is the description. So this brings me to another one of my slides that I'll show in a moment. And if you don't know what you're doing in this environment, like if you're an analyst and you get this alert and you're not sure what to do with it, Splunk Security Essentials provides a description of the MITRE ATT&CK tactic and technique, so you can kind of get up to speed in the moment and have an idea of what to do next. So let's go back in here. Trying to find one. I want to find a search that has fired lately because everything's really behind at the moment. One moment. This will be a good one. Okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry. I don't know why my whole Docker container is having a rough time at the moment. Anyway, we'll keep it going. So that was creating custom content and how to map the searches. Sophie's question for, is the MITRE dashboard part of SSE or is it a separate app? The MITRE dashboard that I just showed you with the colors, I think is the one you're talking about. I created that myself. It's just like 6 searches. It does basic stats on the MITRE tactics and techniques in the notable index. So after you've mapped all this, you want to know where you can find this metadata. What do I get out of this? It's going to be an incident review, which I'm working on trying to show you now. And then it's going to be a direct inject into the correlation search results in the notable index, which we'll go over in a moment. So in the SOC, this is a screenshot of that dashboard I showed momentarily ago. I showed it to you already, the dashboard, and then it really picks up on techniques, tactics, the search names, and the security domains. Those are the more broad things you want to be looking at. Now, benefits for the SOC. What does this do for you? It kind of identifies trends and patterns of adversaries. It can give you a timeline, essentially, of what's going on. So if you know this one threat group, is targeting this one area and it comes in as credentialed access, that's right in the middle of the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. So that you can tell already, you know that they've already been here, and you can look for them in other areas based on the tactic and technique. It gives you an abundance of information in the notable event, which would be the description that I showed you earlier. And then we'll go over the security content overview. I want to talk about the security journey, and then the analytics advisor, which is a major part of the Splunk Security Essentials app. And that's where you can justify new data sources and whatnot. So let's go back to that. Here we go. It looks like my search finally caught up. All right. Thank you for bearing with me. I told you it worked. It's here. So here's the description. So pretend you're an analyst and you're coming in and you're assigned this alert. You don't know what a brute force attack is. It tells you all about what's happening here. I'm not going to read this to you, but it's a very lengthy description of how to get up to speed. You can see automatically what technique they're using and what tactic they're doing. So again, the goal is credentialed access, and how they're doing it is brute force. Okay, so that was where you see all the useful metadata, and then I was going to show you the MITRE ATT&CK Framework, which is over here. All right, so we'll go into the Analytics Advisor and the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. Okay, so let's talk about these numbers here at the top. So 7 content active, 175 content available, 223 content needs data. This whole dashboard is powered by that data inventory page I showed you in the first step. So content that you have data for, which it marks it as available, there's 175 use cases that currently I have data in my environment for. That just means I don't have the correlation searches for them right now. Now, of the total number of use cases we have, there are 223 that I don't have data for. I cannot use them. I can write searches all day long, but I don't have the data for it. Then 7 that's how many use cases that I have sufficient data for and that I have correlation searches mapped to. So here's a way of justifying new data sources in your environment. Say we want to get endpoint detection and response logs that we currently don't have, and we are an energy company and we're really worried about Dragonfly threat group, which are known to target the energy sector. So here's what you do. You would be giving a presentation like I'm doing now, and you say, we're really worried about this Dragonfly threat group. And if you notice, there were no red dots before. So I've selected Dragonfly. Anywhere you see a red, looks like a bad guy on there, that means they are known for targeting these techniques under these tactics. So they're known for account manipulation, drive-by compromise, data compressed, and what have you. Now, if you're trying to say, we really need EDR logs, you can click this, and it'll put a little green box around the areas of the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. So here, anywhere the green box overlaps with the red dot is an area that you can improve your logging to detect against the Dragonfly threat group. So for example, the account discovery, there are 4 available use cases that we have data for. We need data for one of them, and we don't have any searches utilizing any of those use cases at the moment. So you can say, I really need data here. The Dragonfly threat group is known for using the account discovery technique, and you giving me endpoint detection response logs will cover us in this gap of logging here, because clearly wherever there's not dark blue is bad. That means you're not looking there, you don't have logs there, and you don't have searches there either. So this kind of paints a picture and really gives you a magnifying glass as to where you have holes in your logging that you may not have known before. So let's go back over here. That was the Analytics Advisor in use. So what's next? I briefly spoke earlier about the security journey and how it's broken up into 6 stages. So you really think of building a house. You don't build the roof first, you build the foundation first, and that would be stage 1. And you really want to build out your stage 1 and then so on and so forth. So you can do that with this app. It's really helpful by going here, and you can just identify stage one. So I would start with just stage one, find use cases you think are helpful. You can bookmark them here with this little bookmark tab, and it's going to show up in your manage bookmarks section where I showed you where I'd mapped the searches. So that's the best way to start. Obviously, after you do data inventory, because it'll tell you if you have the data for it or not. Now, from there, you're going to want to do stage two and so on and so forth. But let's see, you can, one second, where was I? Oh, no, that's not it either. Here, you can go down to the security journey view, and you can see stage one, you're 35% available that you have data for, 51 you have availability for. So you want to use these charts that are built in here. There's a ton of charts. I'm not able to go through all of them today, but they're really useful when deciding on where to start and what you need to do. Again, start at stage one. All right. Something else you want to tune your correlation searches. Try and utilize data models where you can. T-stats, it runs really quickly. In larger environments, it'll really help you in the long run. You won't have a search that took 5 minutes to run on a basic, that was actually a data model search, but I just have slow Docker container, but you get what I mean. SIM compliance is essential. It's very key. You need that. I mean, and if you're going to use data models, you have to have SIM compliance. So that's definitely something to look out for. And then, of course, you want to add something into your workflow here if you want to continue to map things to MITRE ATT&CK Framework. Anytime you onboard new data, you want to make sure it gets added into that data inventory to kind of stay on top of where you're at. So say you get approved for the endpoint detection response logs, don't just ingest them in map searches. You want to make sure you get it into the data inventory page. That's really, really essential. All right. Does anybody have any questions for me? I can go back and show some other tabs if you'd like. I think this ends at 1. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. And thanks for listening and bearing with my slow Docker container.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, so far we don't have any other questions.
Okay.
But, oh, here we go. So do you know if the security journey is based at all on the blanking on the exact name right now, Splunk Security Prescriptive Value Path?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I think that's a really good question. I'm not that familiar with the prescriptive value path. I feel like probably not. The Splunk Security Essentials added their stages to these, I think. So that's kind of where it's building from. I can look into that for you, though. Let me write that down. So thank you. That was an awesome question. All right. All right. I took note of that. Thank you. Let's see. I can refresh this if you guys wanted to see all the new. We just went through that excessive and it sounded familiar. Yeah, it could be related to exercise. Yeah, it could be very, very related to that. I'm not 100% sure. So as you can see, we had a large spike here of the brute force, which was the result of the searches that I had triggered for us for the demo. So, but any other questions?
I have one. The
Sure.
MITRE dashboard that you made, could you make that source available for people to access?
Yeah, I think I can. I actually let me do some research on that because I saw a screenshot of somebody that had a similar dashboard, and then I just made my own based on that screenshot. So I don't want to steal anybody's work, but I can work on that definitely. And I'm
the
still
value of Splunk being able to let you rip and tear other people's searches.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta love it. All right, I can write that down too. Thank you. All right. Yeah, this would be a good dashboard to kind of just have up on a monitor in the corner of your SOC or something you kind of check on in the mornings when you're coming in. This is a very broad look into your environment, but you can drill down into these. So, Okay.
Anyone else have any other questions?
If nobody wants to ask on the call, you can email me. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Curtis Smallwood, and you can talk to Nancy. She can get you my contact information since you all probably know her better based because of where you're located. So, but here is the link to Splunk Security Essentials. It's very helpful. Let me see if I can find it on Splunkbase for you as well. It's free. Give it a try. And I know in the long run, they're going to be working on, for those of you, are you on Splunk User Groups? Yes, I am on Splunk User Groups. And I think my name there is just Curtis Smallwood. Let me look. Let's see. Yeah, that's my username. It's just Curtis Smallwood, I think. So you can also message me on there. I know on the roadmap to Splunk Security Essentials, they talked about adding the ICS MITRE ATT&CK Framework, which is relatively new. And that's for your industrial control systems. That's the sector that I'm mainly working in now. So it's been a challenge trying to get ICS searches implemented into my environment that map to the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. So that is coming if you are in that area. And here is the Splunk-based link in case you wanted to download it. All right. No more questions? Yes,
I don't see any.
All right.
Thanks for presenting, Curtis.
Yep. Thank you all. Thanks for having me. Thanks for taking your time on your lunch. Probably, well, I guess for you in Iowa, it's not lunch yet, but for us over here, it is lunchtime. So thank you for joining us. And thank you for bearing with my demo. I appreciate it.
But yeah, thanks for presenting. And if anyone has any ideas for topics they want to see in future user groups, just let me know. I have a few that I got from the poll I did, so we'll see if we can fit those in. Otherwise, I'll schedule a meeting for sometime early November, and we'll let you guys go. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a good one. Thanks, everyone.